Andy, as we come in for our second podcast of the week, I'm not sure what's worse, that we can't figure out the sounds to introduce and bring into this podcast, or the Republicans still can't figure out who their House leader is going to be. Seems like quite a show down there. I seem to recall we had a similar type of thing. I don't know, maybe January, February last year. I think that went 15 times. We're only at what, 2 or 3 this time.
Yeah, it's I was looking at this, Dave, and again, I appreciate the frustration of it, but I also still celebrate it in
I know
what we're seeing.
you're a
So
sick person.
what's that?
You're a sick man, but
We can get into that a little later if you want, but it's both comedic and I think testament to democracy. So I'm good with it on both fronts.
well, I do. I mean, I can appreciate that there are a group of people who are standing on some ground. And again, the last time I didn't particularly care for the ground that the people who voted out the former speaker, not that I like the former speaker. And then this time I do actually tend to side with the group that is standing against the current nominee. It just is just high comedy. And you factor in all the other political things that are going on right now, court trials, all this other stuff. It does make for quite an exciting year. Andy, I'm excited. I mean, this next 2024 election is going to be fabulous, right? I mean,
It'd be
so
great. Yeah, it's going to be absolutely great. We can talk about that some more too. I think there's something to share there, kind of building off of one of our pods from last week. But Dave, I also want to go somewhere else. Can I make a quick reference for our last
hey,
pod that I missed it?
this is our pod, Andy. You can go wherever you want.
So I want to mention we were talking about shows, and there's a show that I missed naming as we are talking about some of our favorite 80s sitcoms, and it's one that I should have been like right on, and I'll explain why. So do you remember the show Alice
Oh yes,
with,
Alice.
with, with
Yes,
Flo
of
and Kiss
course.
My Grits, right?
Yeah, of course, of course.
So Alice, one of the main characters of that show was the cook, right? Mel, who
Yes,
who
it was
growing up as
Mel's
a
Diner.
kid. What's that?
It was Mel's Diner, right?
Mel's Diner, that's right. And Vic Tayback played Mel, right, for the I think 9 years or so that show was on. And it was still playing when I got to the US. I could still see, new episodes of Alice when I first came here. And watching Vic Tayback on TV was like watching my dad sucked into a television and playing the role of Mel, because the way he would carry on and yell, and even the way he looked physically, like that was my dad. So I had this weird experience watching that show. I enjoyed it. Jay Leno was on that show. For those that might recall, Jay Leno was out there riding his motorcycle, and it was a fun show to watch. And watching Vic Tayback, who was a Syrian origin, so shared some Jabor family like bloodlines there, was just a character, and it was eerily similar to my father, watching Papa Jabor out there yelling at the family or yelling at Alice. It was kind of the same thing. So I should have remembered that we were talking last week. I wanted to mention that as I felt like I missed mentioning it. Another one of those classic 80s TV shows, one that was far better than Alf. Dave.
Oh, come on. I mean, I don't know how you can make it there. Kiss my grits. It's a good time. I always got Mel confused with Telly Savalas, so the great Telly Savalas. For some reason, again, I was young there. I wasn't really sure of all the pop culture stuff then, but I mean, Telly was a great one. But I think it's interesting you bring that up about remembering your dad. When I think about some things, and again, not that this person remember my dad, but Seinfeld and George Costanza and his dad. Yeah. I mean, how many people reflected on Mr. Costanza? I think it was just amazing. Some of these shows they carry that for you, and can you relate to them so many different ways. Oh, yeah. That's really cool. I Papa Jabor was a great guy. Love Papa Jabor. So thanks for calling that out, Andy.
Yeah,
so.
and Seinfeld, we can give Seinfeld just due. I mean, it's a hard show to watch these days than it used to be. It was a great show. I mean, Seinfeld, one of the best comedies ever. Just a hilarious show. Great cast.
Well, it's amazing about the thing about Seinfeld is you go back and watch it, and it is a little challenging, but like no cell phones, no like smartphones and things like that, and yet this show about nothing, much like our podcast, the show about nothing is was you know just touch so many people because it's so relatable. I think is more than anything else.
Yeah.
Just people living their lives and inexperiences. I think Larry David had a lot to do with that, obviously, and his shows were really good. So very cool. Yeah, good wrap in there, Andy. So hey, so let's go. So we got this weekend coming up. Just quick sports check-in, Andy. How are you feeling about the Lions going in? Anything on the injury reports that you're concerned about, temperature wise? How are you feeling going into a hostile Raven Stadium with the Lions?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, it's a big game. You know, injuries. I think the Lions have really handled themselves well through important injuries. I mean, serious players. I mean, Taylor Decker was out. Taylor's just an anchor for the team. You know, we've lost Monty was out. Jameer Gibbs was out. We lost CJ before the season started. So I mean, the Lions have showed a perseverance and depth that I think is really awesome. So I think they're in good shape going into the game. I think they look good, and I think this is probably the most consequential game they've played because when you go into Kansas City and people aren't expecting you to win, right? You get that win when you're 5-1 and sitting atop the NFL, and you've got power rankings that have you going from fifth to first in some polls.
Oh,
Now
jeez.
you've got expectations, right? Now you've got expectations. So you roll into Baltimore, and if you win, it's like, well, you're supposed to win, and so you kind of have to. But if you lose, and if you lose bad, then people start to look and say, oh, and maybe not. So it's an important game. I think it's probably one of the most important games the Lions have played in a long time. And I think they should be able to get the win. But man, Lamar's a great football player. And while I have no love for their head coach Harbaugh, I think he's not a great coach. I think this could be a good game. So I'm looking forward to it. Dave, I'm so focused on football season when football's on that I don't really even acknowledge other sports. I mean, I'm a huge NFL fan. It really does. But yeah, there's a lot of other great sports still going on. And one thing I really enjoyed, I haven't really had a chance to talk to, maybe we'll talk a little bit more, is I enjoy the Premier League. I don't know if you're a soccer fan at all, but I really enjoy Premier League soccer, and it is Premier League time. It's the whole year is practically Premier League time. So it's fun to watch there. And I don't know if I'm a Chelsea fan, a Blues fan, and they're not doing great, but it's still fun to watch that as well. But I'll stop there because I see you're decked out in Orioles garb. And so what's going on in your world of sports?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I am not a Premier League person. I know it's a trendy thing for some people. They want to get in, and I know the MLS is getting a lot bigger in the United States too, especially with some of the people who come over near the later ends of their career and stuff. I just haven't gotten into soccer. I don't have any visceral reaction to soccer like I probably did in my youth, where it was baseball versus soccer. But I'll be honest, it just hasn't ever caught for me. There is a team here in Charlotte. I am an MLS team that is really popular, mostly because the Panthers stink and the Charlotte Hornets are not that great either. But they do love their soccer. Their I think it's FC Charlotte or something. But for me, it's been I enjoy just being able to flip. I love baseball just because I know it's there, right? There's that Field of Dreams quote about baseball's always there, and people always come to baseball because it's pure, yada yada yada. There's a lot to it, but I just love baseball because I know it's always there. It's comfort food for me, and so like especially in the fall. I love turning on the playoff games and watching those. And even though I may not have much of a rooting interest, I think that just energy in playoff sports is just unmatched in so many
Yeah.
different ways that I really enjoy. And I'll be honest, I really enjoy watching this Phillies team because they're just a bunch of like scrappers. And I mean, obviously Bryce Harper's great, and they have a great lineup up and down and such, but they just come across and they've fit the part of their city, and I do enjoy watching that. But for football wise, Andy, the Cowboys, I'll watch them, but I'm not going to go as far as I used to go. I am interested this weekend, obviously, with Penn State, Ohio State.
Yeah.
Penn State has always been the last several years. has had a really good, but they just can't get over Ohio State and Michigan, or they get over one but not the other, and they drop. This is a huge game for them in terms of whether they have that lasting impact and can actually make a real playoff run. So if they can, I don't think Ohio State's a particularly great team. I don't think their coach is particularly great at all. But they do have a lot of talent, and sometimes for college football, just straight talent wins out. And Penn State's good, but I'm just not sure how good. So we'll see. But
Ohio
that's
State's one of those programs that's always just solid. I know I mentioned Taylor Decker; he came out of that program, and like Alabama, they just churn out pro
right.
players. So it's a good school. And yeah, I mean, Dave, you mentioned Philly. I lived in Philly for the year between my two pleasurable experiences in the Army. It's a great city for sports. I mean, I've been there to watch. I've watched baseball, soccer, football, hockey there. It's a great sports town, and it's just a fun place to be. If have you spent time in Philly?
So my grandparents on my dad's side had a farm in Reading, which is about, I don't know, an hour and a half away from Philly. So they adopted the Phillies as their sports teams to watch. So I always was around them, but I've never actually really, I mean, other than visiting, I've never really been in the city, I would say.
Yeah. No, if anybody, I mean, besides the historical part, which is beautiful. I mean, seeing the Liberty Bell is awesome. Great city to be in. A lot going on. And then Chickies and Pete's is like a Philly, it's a known place to dine while you're in Philly. And man, those crab fries and just the whole atmosphere of the place, it's very, very Philly feeling. So it's a good time. So as we ramble on this Seinfeld-esque podcast about nothing, there's a lot going on in that beautiful city. So it's a great American city, and an incredible history of part of our country. So anyway, Dave, we're halfway through our podcast, and back to that Seinfeld reference. I'm not sure we've discussed anything yet, so let me stop talking. It's all yours.
Well, that's always good. So we'll check in, Andy, next week on our sports teams and see how we did as you drink from your Lions mug. But let's go, Andy. I want to bring in the top of mind topic, and this is something that's been interesting. So I'm going to ask you to go with me here, Andy, and
All right.
just think about it. So I'm in the store last weekend, and my daughter and I are going to pick up some things from a retail store and a very big retail store. So we'll go in there and look around, and we're trying to find a couple like odds and ends for Halloween so that we can touch up the house just a little bit more, than we had. And so we go in there, and Andy, lo and behold, it's only October 10th or 14th or whatever. It's early October, right? We're not at the end of the month. Early October, there's hardly a Halloween item to be found. And if there is, it's where there's a lot. You saw where the Halloween decorations used to be, but it's only like the skipped over stuff. And I'm sitting there going, well, that's a little weird. So we're a little disappointed, but we still had some other errands we were going to get. So we had to pick up some other items. I go around the corner, Andy, and what do I see? Rows and rows of Christmas. Rows and rows of Christmas, Andy. And look, I love Christmas. It's a wonderful time. It's one of my favorite parts of the year. In fact, it is probably my favorite part of the year, because I love that day after Thanksgiving to start breaking out all the Christmas stuff, the music, start watching the shows. We'll get into that at another time. But Andy, we have gone from it's not even Halloween yet to past Halloween and into Christmas, which is still two months away. Andy, why are we so eager to get through things to the next thing? And oh, by the way, what's in the middle, Andy? Thanksgiving's there. I mean, this is a great holiday. So, I mean, we're just skipping over Thanksgiving. We don't have Thanksgiving decorations out. We don't have anything that's celebrating Thanksgiving. Andy, there's not even really a top 5 movie out there celebrating Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is ignored, and more, it's more about other things than being thankful. Okay, so just again, Andy, I'm asking you to go with me here. So as we go from Halloween, a scary, spooky stuff, to Christmas, where we talk about presents and giving and all, in the middle of the part about being thankful, we're ignoring. So is this a sign that we are so focused on spooky, scary, fearful things and about receiving and giving that we forget to be thankful? Is that a sign? Is that something to think about as like our country? Are we going downhill because we're not thankful enough?
Well, I mean, there's so many places that you've gone there. First, this is a great old get off my lawn rant that you're on right now. So I commend you for embracing your old man vibe on this. But so one, I'll take some solid positions here. One, Halloween, never been a big fan, couldn't care less if it comes and goes, and it's just a lot of work for a whole lot of nothing. I can get into the Halloween spirit at all. Never really have, never really will. So I don't care if it's a blip on the screen and goes away. Personal bias. Yes, on Thanksgiving, there's a whole lot to dig into there. A great American holiday. We do gloss over, being thankful. That's a whole probably long discussion. And three, Christmas. I mean, Christmas sells, man. You got to lean into it, embrace the commercialism, right? Buy your Christmas decor 3 months out, just like Dave. In our work world, we talk about winter weather preparedness a quarter out. Hey, you got to lean into Christmas too, man. You got to get your decor before everything good is gone, and you got to get your lights out, update your decorations. You got to prepare for this mentally and physically, prepare for the Christmas season. So, I understand the frustration, but I'm overall okay with it because spiders and messy spider webs and ghouls and goblins, and the whole thing's just an eye roll to me. So I'll buy my token bag of candy. I do enjoy seeing the kids. I mean, that part I do
Yeah.
enjoy. I think little kids and their enthusiasm is always fun. But also, like I've an always increasing amount of kids that don't even put the effort into dressing up anymore. And so
Yeah.
if you're going to show up on my door in your sweatpants and a t-shirt with a bag of candy, and you can barely even say trick or treat, it's like, hey, bag pushed into my face. It's like, what are we even doing here? Like, this is I don't know what we're training our kids to do. So I appreciate the frustration, but I think overall I just don't care about Halloween. So I can't share your indignation. I'm sorry. I just
Yeah,
can't do it.
it's just a little weird, and I'm gonna say, Andy, I did lean into buying the Christmas stuff because I had FOMO, I had fear of missing out on
Yeah,
like that Christmas decoration that I was wanting to have. If I didn't get it today or last week, it was out. I mean,
Don.
it's tough. So I mean, it was interesting. I'm not a big Halloween person necessarily either. My little one really likes it. We're in a neighborhood that does like to sell, like they take these holidays pretty serious in some respects. I was never a big Halloween person other than handing out candy, never wanted to put up lights, but we do have a little inflatable thing out front and a couple of strings of lights. But this is quite a cool neighborhood because they'll do it for everything. Like for Memorial Day, the bunting will come out. The
Yeah.
red, white, and blue bunting will come out on the stuff, and all the flags are out. It is great. We have a 4th of July parade for the kids and such. So it is really cool, and they do get into Halloween. So it's kind of like keeping up with the Joneses here. But anyways, I was just struck by that because I was like, this is still. I mean, I think Halloween decorations actually started coming out in August. So, I mean, it is a little weird, but commercialism it does sell, I guess. So,
Hey, that's what America's all about, and I love it. I love it. Go buy stuff and decorate away, and have your neighborhood parades, and I love it. I love the neighborhood peer pressure too. I like that you're pressured to
nothing,
decorating. So
there's nothing like neighborhood peer pressure. That is for sure. All right, Andy, that was at the top of my mind as I was going through things. Anything at the top of your mind, Andy?
Dave, I wanted to share. We've been talking a various number of political issues, and I'm glad that we do. If I can just go back to that a little bit, we mentioned recently Arnold Schwarzenegger, who we're both fans of, and by the way, I'm really enjoying his new book right now. But you were recently complaining about the idea of Biden and Trump, two older presidential candidates, the oldest in American history. And Arnold was at a Wall Street Journal event. He was at the Wall Street Journal Tech Live at Laguna Beach in California. And he said, basically, these two guys need to step aside and make room for a new generation of leaders. That was remarks made on Monday of this week at the Wall Street Journal event. And I appreciate Arnold for his candor and always. And I think in these remarks, it's kind of just jumped out at me. One, because you've been making a similar pitch here, but two, because the challenge. I just want to raise this sort of issue for you and us to think about, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you know government leadership, those planning laws and legislation in the direction of our country, like the country and the future belong to the youth, right? So if your expiration date is coming up in the next 5 to 10 years, like I don't know that you should be the person guiding our country into the future. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's a merit to turning over the reins to those who are going to be affected by the decisions and consequences of what happens today, right? And the reality is, it takes time for decisions to sort of trickle through and affect our country. And by the time a lot of things that Biden and Trump are running on like really hit the United States, those two guys are going to be gone, and it's going to be our generation and the millennials and Gen Z, a great generation, which makes me really optimistic. We're going to be the ones picking up after these guys leave the world stage, if the baby boomers and those two guys ever leave the world stage. So I appreciated Arnold's comments there, and I really think it's important for us as Americans and voters to really think about like who we want to give leadership responsibilities to, because I think it really is time to see a younger generation sort of lead this country, maybe in a different direction, hopefully in a different direction, to be honest. But those that are going to live with the consequences of those decisions and actions should be the ones making those decisions and actions. And candidly, if you're 80, you're not going to see the long term effects of whatever decisions are being made. So time to enjoy retirement. Go. Joe and Donald need to go get a beach house together and a bungalow somewhere in Bali, and just take some time off together.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think it's a great point, Andy. And my position here is, I mean, just look over the last week with both of these individuals. I mean, Biden was in Israel yesterday, and the video of him. And look, great. I have nothing for against Biden. I think he's been a fine president. He's fine, but he's out there and he looks old. I mean, he looks like. I mean, he looks like a Halloween character on somebody's porch or something. I mean, it is tough to watch some of that, and Trump's the same way. You hear him on the stump, and I guess when he's on a teleprompter, he's fine. But when he starts getting off on a teleprompter, you start really wondering about what is really going on in those areas. And in his mind, you could say that for his entire life, but the reality is these people they're over 80. I mean, we're at the point now where we really do need a recharge on our political parties. Unfortunately, I think the structure has been so geared that the people who have been in power for longer shape it so that they continue to stay in power. And
Yeah.
until we put these term limits in, until we put these other controls in place, we're going to continue to have this type of area, and it just doesn't work. I mean, we gerrymander districts so that we don't ever face stiff competition. We don't ever have real debates on the issues that allow people to really focus on. Instead, we've shaped these districts so that they just reflect what we want them to reflect. There's so many hardly competitive districts anymore on the House side. This is where you get into some of these type of elected officials that come in, and so it is challenging. And I will challenge anybody. Go back to the early days of this country. Jefferson, Washington, Hamilton, all the greats, the founding fathers. They weren't 80 years old, Andy. They were, 30s, in their 30s, late 20s in some respects. They were young individuals who had inspiring ideas. And guess what? They built you said it last podcast, they built the greatest document in the history of this world in the U.S. Constitution. I mean, think about all the things that have been built. The
Yeah.
U.S. Constitution remains the pinnacle. Everyone strives for it, and yet nobody else has been able to do it. And it's a tribute to this country and all the great ideas and things that have happened here. But we need an infusion, Andy. I think it's time. We just can't continue with the Mitch McConnells, the Chuck Schumers, who we can't continue the Nancy Pelosi's, the any of these older individuals. They need to cycle them out.
Yeah.
You've served your time. Thank you for your service. Move on.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's not to disparage them personally. I mean, thank you for your
Right.
service to our country, whether I agree with you or not politically, or agree with your political antics or not. But I think you're right on. You talk about gerrymandering, another area that, to be honest, Arnold was a leader in
Yep.
California, fighting gerrymandering. Haven't seen that success in other states around the country. It's still a big issue. That hurts our country. Term limits, I think we've mentioned before on this podcast, a great issue. There's so many things that most Americans support that are, messy Congress will simply not put into place because it's not in their interest, right? It's not in the interest of the two political parties. And there's going to be a time where we really got to either see, leaders or a political party or governors who are really my hope take action to force change upon Washington. And unfortunately, we've got 50 governors, we've got 50 wannabe presidents, right? Almost every one of those gals and guys aspires to the White House, so they also do things sort of in their political interest. But there's opportunity there at the state leadership level to make a difference in some of these areas and do the right thing for our country. So one way or the other, I think we'll eventually get to a point where we can see some real progress in better representation in our republic and really trying to live up to the ideals of our Constitution. We still have an amazing country. We still have a lot of amazing people trying to serve our country, but the political system, that duopoly system, really hurts in so many ways. So I can soapbox on that a whole lot, Dave. I'll save that for another day. But good points being made, and in the post I'll share, with this podcast, I'll share some links there to gerrymandering and some other topics we just touched on, because I think they're good for folks to think about and listen about. So thank you. And by the way, Dave, before we wrap up, I've got to commend you while we're talking Halloween and sports. The Orioles really take it Halloween colors and embrace them. Unlike most, where there's not a lot of orange and black sports teams. So, hey, happy Halloween, Baltimore Orioles fans.
Yeah, they do a good job, and I'm in my Take October sweatshirt that I bought for the playoff game, and then I'm in my Orioles hat. And I think besides the Orioles, I think the San Francisco Giants are probably the only other team that really across sports that really is the black and orange. I think it's a good look for the fall for sure.
We've got to give respect to the Bengals, right? The Bengals,
oh, there we go.
Although their white and black is way cooler, their orange and black.
You like that?
The white and black, I think it's cool. I think it's pretty cool. Their zebra stripes, I think, are pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then staying with orange, because orange really, it doesn't work on a whole lot of sports teams, right? All the Bucks, right? I mean, the classic Bucks that they wore this last week. I love those uniforms. But the Browns, probably the most disgusting looking sports team in all of professional sports. I mean, I don't know how a team leaves a city and they give them an expansion team and they recreate the absolute most disgusting franchise look in NFL history. Now, maybe the Cleveland fans really embrace it, but I mean, let's be honest, right? The name sucks, the uniforms suck, the team kind of sucks. I mean, like they're terrible. So maybe it's time for the Browns to consider a serious facelift operation and get out of the 1960s maybe.
Andy, the demographics just came in for our podcast, and all of our listeners are from Cleveland. So thanks for alienating those people, Andy. So,
hey, great city, great. We watched. I mentioned this last week. I think we watched a game in Cleveland. Fantastic fans, genuinely nice people, even to obnoxious Lions fans, which we were that day. Great. We had some really good meals. Good looking city. And so, I mean, no issue with the city of Cleveland. I appreciate Ohio. I appreciate Cleveland, again, a great American state, a great American city. I'm just saying the football team sucks. That's,
Well, there you go. So, Andy, before we alienate any other football fan bases, let's put a wrap on this one for the week. Andy, just real quickly, anything you got for a Friday, Music Friday, New Music Friday? Anything you got on your schedule?
I'm standing by on a Thursday. I'm getting myself mentally and physically prepared to enjoy my New Music Friday. So I'll be diving into that tomorrow, and we'll kind of see where it goes. There was some good music last week. I don't know if maybe not the most popular band, but last week, Empire of the Sun released a song.
Oh, yeah.
Some folks like them, some folks don't, but I think they've got a really cool and unique sound. So they had a joint song came out last week that's pretty decent. AEIOU, brilliantly titled vowel based song. So we'll see what comes out this week.
Yeah, there you go, Andy. Well, with that, we will put a wrap on this podcast for today, and we'll put a wrap on our podcast for the week. Andy, hope you have a great weekend coming up, and hope you have a good. We'll do a sports check-in, and hopefully the Lions come away with that one this weekend. So good luck on there.
Thanks, Dave. I believe. We'll talk next week.
There you go. All right, Andy. With that, then I'll see you next time.